comes to skilled worker visa, what are the misconceptions from the international students?
So if you look at the skilled worker visa and what kind of misconceptions that they have, I think the misconception that they have, number one, is they think it's easier to get it at the lower threshold. So, for example, they think if our threshold is lower, for example, if you get a job at 25,600, for some of the engineering fields, this threshold is 23,000 or something. They think because the salary is low, it's easier to get a visa. That's the biggest misconception that I see. But remember, when something is easier to get, it'll be more competitive. So every single student is fighting for that lower salary skilled worker visa. So it's tough to get at that time. And the biggest reason I would say that you should not apply and run after visas for that salary is because that job would devalue your experiences and you have a chance to grow very quickly. So that's the biggest misconception that I see, that you think right after I graduate, I should apply for skilled worker visa. Like the first thing I should do after my graduation is skilled worker visa. No. So, and what you could do instead is apply for the graduate route visa, obviously, which is an entitlement. If you pass the degree, you'll get it. So apply for that. That buys you the time. So if there are two people, imagine one person got a skilled worker visa at 25,000. You don't get a skilled worker visa at 25,000, but you get the 25,000 job. That person stays in that same salary for 3 to 5 years, whereas within 2 years you would be around 36, 37, and then you start your journey with a skilled worker visa. And at 37 you can choose your company. You would be a brand by then. You would be a great valuable asset for a company. You can own the journey, while that person who was desperate enough to just get a visa at 25,000 would be in the same job for 5 years with the same company. Imagine where you'll be. Imagine where that person will be in 5 years. You'll be there in 2 years. So this is the difference. This is the difference. The biggest misconception is do not run after sponsorship right after you graduate. Please apply for the graduate visa. Own your journey. You would get more jobs, get your salary up, turn into a good product, and then apply for the skilled worker visa. And then obviously you have other options like the startup visa. I think if you ask me, it's a very fun thing because startup visa allows you to work as well. Graduate visa allows you to run your own business as well. It's
Yeah.
because those of these visas are very synonymous. Synonymous. You could do both of these things on both the visas if you look at it. But the only benefit for the startup visa that I see right now is that it will lead you to the innovator visa in a good way. So it gets you some exemptions in the innovator visa later on. But
Yeah.
I think, I'll be very careful here, Matthew, because startup visa is fine. Please do that only when you are serious about the business. Right now, we can't use startup visa to buy time because you already have the graduate visa. So, startup visa, if you have an idea of a business and you have that mindset, I'm telling you, Matthew, not everyone is capable of doing a business. It's a different. You need to be a different kind of a person to run our own startup. If you are that kind of a person, if you have that kind of a background, then study really well. Startup visa is a good time because when you apply for a startup visa, you do not get it as easy as you get the graduate visa.
Yeah.
Some you need to
Yeah.
get a sponsor. You need to get from the university. Most of the sponsors would be the universities themselves. Their entrepreneurial departments, the
Yeah.
startup department, enterprise teams. They would give you the visa. They would make you do some workshops and stuff and pitch for funding and all those things. So yeah, that's a good way to start your career. But on the other hand, Matthew, I would definitely suggest while you are working on your startup, still work in a job. Because I've seen this happen with a few students. There was one student who spent 2 years on starting their own startup and everything. After that he decided, okay, no, I want to do a job. Now, the problem is you wasted 2 years in something and you did not work anywhere on the side. He was doing a part time job but was not working in a full time office based job within this field. Now you are 2 year rusty. Your degree is 2 year rusty. What were you doing with the degree for 2 years? Now, do not commit that mistake. Even if you have a business, as they say for everyone, you need to work for somebody to learn how to do business.
Yeah.
So please, even if you go for a startup visa, if you have that itch in you to be your own boss, still work in a full time 40 hours office based job and still you would have the time to work on your side hustle for your startup. Remember, I'm telling you this. It's so funny. People say, when I work in a 40 hours job, when will I get the time to learn, to work on my startup? I'm like, there you go. Startup is not a 40-hour gig anyway. Startup is 24/7. So if you could not manage your 40 hours job plus work on your startup, you are not an entrepreneur anyway. It's so funny.
Yeah,
People think
yeah,
startup, working as an entrepreneur is a 24/7. It's a 9 to 5 thing. It's not. It takes more time than a 9 to 5 job
yeah,
to be an entrepreneur. So just to see if you're an entrepreneur or not, do a 40-hour full time job, then work on your startup. If you can still manage that, yes, you have the urge in you to be an entrepreneur. Otherwise, if you can't do that, remember, don't go that down that path. So these are some of the visas you could go startup. Then the innovator visa is there as well later on, but innovator visa is very stringent in terms of how you could pass it. So your idea really needs to have that innovation in it to actually make it to that point and then earn a lot of money at the end of the day and create that employment thingy. Because I have a lot of friends who are on innovator visas, they got extensions because they could not satisfy the 3-year limit for innovator, and then they had to get more time on innovator to pass for the ILR. So it is a tough thing. So startup route right now, I think, is better to isn't it better to just take the graduate visa, work in a job, and on the side try your startup luck, see if it works out for you. And if you're very very sure about your startup, then get the startup visa so that you can get the support from the university and still work in a full-time job. There is no way around doing a job. You need
yeah,
to get money because every day you're staying in the UK, you're losing money. You pay rent, you pay everything. So full-time jobs, irrespective of what visa you are on, you need to do that. And then the new visa is here as well, the scale-up visa. The
yeah,
scale-up visa, which is a really good visa as well. um, right now it's still very new. You need to find a company which is a scale-up, so not a startup. So there's a limit of how much money they're earning per annum, more than 2 million or something like that. It has to be a startup who's really in a growth phase. So that's what a scale up is called. So difference between a startup and a scale up is, when a startup is in a growth phase, that's a scale up. Simple as that. So that's a good visa. The best part about that visa is that you just need to work for that company for 6 months, and after that you are just on your own, which is the best part about that. Which is, after that, you get all the benefits of a graduate visa but for longer.
hmm,
So it's like it's such a cool visa if you look at it. So that's a great visa you could go into. But now especially right now, not all industries are on it. So it's more into IT and fintech and all of these well structured industries where you have more
yeah,
startups. Simple as
yeah,
that. Where you get more startups which are getting more money, more funding. Those are the areas into it. I think not everyone can go into a scale up visa, but that's a good one. Maybe later. Maybe later. So for example, you go for the graduate visa, you make your, hence the graduate visa is more important in this case because you make yourself valuable for the industry and then find a scale up. Just at
yeah,
the time when you're applying to find a skilled worker visa, a company for that, maybe at the same time you could find a scale up to apply for a visa. So at that
hmm,
time, by the end of your graduate visa, trying to find those companies as well who are scale ups. So maybe add this into your strategy: scale ups and skilled worker visa. Apply for both of these things together. But if you ask me, scale up is much better, much better. Skills 6 months of being with one company. After that, you can leave them if you want to, and you can change the job very quickly. You don't have to apply for the visa again. That's the best part. And on that note, talking about skilled worker visa, remember, it's not easy to change a job on a skilled worker visa. I've done it, but it takes you money. If you have the money, you can do it. But on a skilled worker visa, you have to forego all the money that you wasted for the application and make another application if you change the job.
anyone,
and
yeah,
then and then you do get back the IHS money, but you get back after a year. By that, you like forgotten about the money, and then they cut a lot of money in it as well. So it does take a lot of money, lump sum money, to change the job on a skilled worker visa. Remember that. So just so you know, so that's why graduate visa is paramount. Is the most important thing you can do. Is the best visa you need to think about after your graduation, because that can get you save money for the visas for the future. That can get you more valuable experience. You become a great product, and then you can choose the company you can go into. So graduate visa is very, very important. So graduate visa, then you could apply for the skilled worker or the scale up. Startup visa only if you're very, very serious about this, because it can help you go into the innovator visa. So these are some of the, and then obviously if you are an academic, the global talent visa, but that won't apply for a lot of international students anyway.
Very important that international students should try to see themselves as a product. So they need to be able to become like a salesperson, a sales representative of themselves to be able to sell their worth to a
Exactly.
company for them to be able to be convinced to employ them and stand out. Thank you so much for that. Now, coming back to the skilled worker visa, right? What have you seen from your experience are the misconception from the companies as regarding to skilled work visa?
With misconception with the skilled worker visa, so if they're already a sponsor, they would not have any misconceptions. But I think companies who are not sponsors yet, yeah, they definitely think, and they're fine in thinking so. Nobody loves legal work. It is a legal thing at the end of the day. No company would want to get themselves into a legal process for no reason, for subpar product, as I always say. So that's the biggest misconception. They think that the process is very expensive, if they don't know, but it doesn't take that much money to become a sponsor, and they think it's a very lengthy process and all that. Which is, it is a lengthy process. If you look at it, it does take 3 to 6 months to become a sponsor. At times it could become quicker, but they need to pay more money for it. But I think that's the biggest misconception. If you look at the small to medium companies, the SMEs, they think the process is difficult. That's where we need to educate them. There are so many companies, so many lawyers that you could get touch into, and obviously it is a money-consuming thing. Not everyone can do it. But then again, when you have worked on a full-time job on your graduate visa, and if you're alone, you would have saved a lot of money. Hypothetically speaking, you should have saved, like, if you look at it, I think you should have saved 5, 6, 7,000, 8,000 pounds in those 2 years. If you have worked 40 hours, that's the money you should have saved. So you could offer the company that I can help you become a sponsor. I can help you towards that journey, and I can get you the lawyers. You pay for the lawyers. That's fine. So
Yeah.
it is a misconception with the employers that it's a very tough process, long process, and something they cannot do. But it is something that can be done very, very easily. Home office doesn't Home office doesn't stop you in applying for a sponsorship license. They don't.
Hmm.
So it's not something very risky. So the biggest misconception is it's difficult, tough, expensive, and risky. Whereas it's not risky. It's a legal process. You go through it and it's done. Number two, there is a misconception, not a misconception, but it's a good assumption that they have, that at times you definitely require a very big HR team to run a sponsorship license, whereas you just need one person who would be able to manage the paperwork, who would be the contact
Yeah.
person for home office to go to
Yeah.
that particular interface. It's an interface. They get a login for an employer and skilled worker visa platform. One person
Yeah.
needs to be able to manage that. So
Hmm.
from yeah, so I think one person teams have been sponsoring visas before, so you just need one HR person. Yes, it's right. A company, a small company who does not have any HR person, yes, it's tough for them to sponsor, because you need a proper HR person who would be able to manage those paperworks. So that's another thing the companies are usually worried about. And 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 then there are no misconceptions, anything else, because if a company already has the sponsorship license, they can give it to anyone that they wish to. And yeah, another thing that should be considered is paying for the skilled worker visa. Matthew, paying for it. um
Okay.
a lot of companies lose really good talent because they do not pay for the skilled worker visa. The employee has to pay it for themselves, and it's really, really expensive for them to pay it themselves, and if they have families as well. I really, really think that like a lot of academic institutions, companies should start loan schemes. They should start salary sacrifice schemes, and some sort of a scheme to pay for the visa. On the longer run, it's for a company, for a large company, 3,000, 4,000 pounds is not a big amount. Or at least they could offer interest free loans for this purpose. A lot of higher education companies, universities do. I call them companies, but which they are by the end of the day. But if you look at it, I think this is something corporate sector and the private sector should start as well, where they should offer loan schemes for skilled worker visas. I think that's the next agenda they should work on. And they should have some sort of an interest free loan scheme, or maybe give the skilled worker visa money for the employee and not for his family. Maybe it's fine, at least give them something, and you would see influx of really good candidates applying for these things. Because at the end of the day, it is a reality, Matthew. I have seen so many people who have the good skills, good English skills, good communication skills, go back to their countries, could not make it work in the UK because of money as well. Because of money.
Mhm.
At the end of the day, keeping everything constant, you have the skills, you have everything to make it work in the UK, money becomes a problem because they were here with their family, three kids, one wife, one person themselves, 11, 12,000 pounds of visas. You do not have that kind of a money. So I think
Mm.
that's the agenda we should work on more, rather than if you're talking about changing the employers changing their policies to hire more international. I think that agenda is still nowhere as important as paying for the visa. Paying
Yeah.
for the visa is much bigger, because that way you don't lose the product now, because I was talking about the product. Now we lose good product as well for because of this reason of the cost. Because if a good product cannot sell themselves and does not have the right money to buy the visa, they can't.
Hmm.
So I think more than any agenda, the skill worker agenda we're working on, the awareness agenda, education agenda, forget about all those. If you're a good product, they will hire you. But yes, even if you're a good product, if you do not have the money to pay for it, you cannot get hired. And that is the reality. 11,000, 12,000 pounds for a family is a big amount. You don't have that much money. You would never have that much money. So I think that's the next change I would like to see in the skilled worker visa scheme of things.
Wow. Thank you so much for that, Danny. One of the things you said resonated. It is helping the company to be able to get this, sometimes this sponsor, license for them to sponsor international students or immigrant per se. And I think some companies kind of embrace international student helping them.
Mm-hmm.
Some don't embrace it because they don't understand it yet. And
Yep.
is that just gray area as to what is the level of understanding and the benefit that the skilled worker visa can bring to their company?
Yeah, I'll just say one thing. When you say this thing like, what benefit does the skilled worker visa bring to the international to them? You
To them,
know,
yeah.
yeah, I think work visas have always been there, has always been there in all these countries. If
Mm,
they see, even before skilled worker visas, this point based system, do you think international people were not working for these companies? They were, but
yeah.
the best product, for example, if they find a Japanese scientist or somebody who's doing great in Japan, they get them to work here, they come here. If you have a great Pakistani person who's working in a like a big, amazing job and has a good brand back in my country, a bank will get them here. Simple as that. Work visas have always been around in all these countries. They've always been there. They've always been there. So this whole argument of getting them to realize the value of skilled worker visa, it's a waste of time, because they know if they see good product, good values, good skills, they will do anything to hire that person. And skilled worker visa is just one way to do that. So us doing that, oh, this whole agenda of, as simple as that. Look at us first. Look at the pool of talent that we give them. If that pool of talent is not good, why we want them to educate themselves on skilled worker visa? What's the value of the skilled worker visa? Nothing. Then what's the point? They could get better students in the home environment. So I think this whole argument, I don't support it at all. Educating people about skilled worker visa, no. If you are a great product, this visa thing will fall in place. So many
Okay.
ways you could make them a sponsor. You can pay them the money. They will be a sponsor already. They might have been a sponsor for a higher level position. They can apply to become a sponsor. These categories of sponsorships. At times you can just
Yeah.
sponsor a manager, not sponsor entry level roles. You
Hmm.
could make them do anything if you have it in you. And
Yeah.
because
The right products.
right product, simple as that.
Yeah.
And I always say this, simple. Might be a controversial thing to say, but this is it. Employers are not there to make it very easy for you to apply for it and get the job. Why would they?
Hmm. Yeah.
They need the best product for their companies, and that is it. And this whole argument of they do not realize, how good the product is. Nah, 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 nah. There are people in the companies. They know, they do these, these a recruitment needs analysis kind of a stuff where they know the value of international people. They have been getting international people since ages now. They have been getting people from all over the world. If they see value, they will go after it. So this argument, you might not have known, work visas have been here forever, right?
Yeah,
Work
that's
visa,
true.
every country has it. Every
Yeah.
country has it. Why do they have it? For this particular reason. They want value, they go and get it. So they want change. For you, you need to become a better product.
Danny, thank you so much for that. I mean, I'm going to allow you to go pretty soon. Just the last question, and I know you've mentioned this earlier. So the focus should be shifted from the companies and the employers themselves to the international student becoming a valuable product.
Yeah.
Now, I know you've mentioned it earlier, but I just wanted to just expatiate on it, how the international student can make themselves a valuable product, irrespective of the industry they're applying to,
Mm.
irrespective of their career path, irrespective of what their career aspiration is in the UK. How can they make themselves stand out and, most importantly, valuable to the employers? And how can they demonstrate that value that they bring to an employer?
Exactly. I think one word would be branding. Branding is the art of selling and marketing your knowledge, skills, and abilities. The art of selling and marketing your knowledge, skills, and abilities is personal branding. I think that's something they need to learn. And that starts with putting value in what you have done. People do masters, people do bachelors here, people do all sorts of education. They don't put the value in what they have done. That's the biggest reason I see is the downfall for international students. I'll give you an example. They do a masters in something. At the end of the year, they say, Danny, though I don't have experience in banking, I've done a banking masters, but can I get a job in banking? Now, if you with this mindset apply for jobs, you're never gonna make it. What if I tell you the biggest way they could become a great brand is seeing the value in whatever they do? I always say this: part time job is actual work experience, uni experience is actual work experience. Again, every assignment, coursework that you do for 5 marks, 10 marks, a project, a presentation, somebody in the UK is getting paid to do that. So
Mm.
remember how to reframe those experiences and sell it as work experience. So this is how you become as a valuable person. When you come here, your time is already against you. You need to look at every single assignment that you do and say, "Wow, this I need to sell this as a project because somebody in the UK is getting paid to do a job for this particular same thing that I did for free for marks."
Yeah,
So
yeah.
remember this: brand yourself, brand your experiences, and branding is simple. What is branding? Branding is the benefit other person get from you. I'll give you one last example, which is, why do people stand in queues at 3 a.m. at night to get the new Apple phone, but they would never do it for Samsung? It's the associative value. And what if I tell you Apple doesn't invent technology? Apple is not the leader in technology invention. Apple takes old technology but packages it well. That is branding for you. So you could take is the value they tell us is the value we get. Simple as that. If you look at Apple's website where they sell these MacBooks, they don't tell us at the very top new processor, 8 GB RAM. No, they say the best for the brightest. What are they selling? They're selling a value to us. They're selling a brand to us, a promise, a potential. So, this is what international students have to do. This is called the feature versus benefit model. Do not sell them the features. Say, I know this, I know that, I have this skill, I have this degree, I have two masters. Nobody cares. What you can do with that for them is what they care for. That is even local students can't do. So remember, how to sell and how to sell and market your experiences is everything in today's world. They believe what you say. If you could build the perception in an interview, you'll be successful, and that would be your reality. Your perception in the eyes of other people is your reality, and that gets you the job.
Thank you so much for that, Danny. Danny, thank you so much. It's an exceptional pleasure to have you on this podcast, and I hope you'll be able to come back. When we
No
invite
problem.
you
Definitely.
for other, conversation, because the movement of international student diversity is something that is still resonating in my head, which I feel that we need to take that movement to the next
Yep.
level, if you get what I mean. And so, thank you so much for sharing your insights on the challenges with international students and how they can better position themselves in the job market, making
Mm.
themselves valuable and making themselves their own sales representative compared to having to ask someone else to do the job for them. They need to
No.
do the job themselves and not somebody else, not the university, not the employers themselves, not the company. They have to take ownership of their own career in the UK. And
Mm.
most importantly, I think from what you've said is that they need to be hungry. They need to be hungry for it. They need to,
Yep.
because Africa with the Asia community,
Mm.
they are hustlers. Like you
Yeah.
said, what you can do in one day can take an home country candidate 5 days to do, which is true
Yeah.
with African students too. So it's very important that international student becomes hungry, and then they become a go-getter. Go and get what you actually really want yourself. Branding
Yeah.
yourself is a very, very important and vital point there. So thank you so much, Danny, for your time and expertise.